The training field was quiet in the early morning. The pale sun of the station's artificial cycle had just begun to rise, casting long shadows over the open ground. Markle stood alone at first, wearing light armor instead of his usual military uniform. He wanted to make this look less like an official drill and more like a personal lesson. He checked his watch. Exactly on time, footsteps approached. Leary appeared at the edge of the field, wearing simple training clothes in soft blue. She carried no weapon, only a small pack. Her posture was upright, her expression calm, but her eyes moved quickly, studying the space. "You are ready?" Markle asked. "I am," Leary said. "Good. Drop the pack." She placed it on the ground. Markle nodded toward the far end of the field. "We start with movement. Humans and Virilians walk differently. Your people rely on grace and balance. My people rely on speed and stability under weight. You'll need both." The first exercise was simple, running from one end of the field to the other. At first, Leary moved with her natural Virilian stride, smooth, almost floating. Markle timed her silently, then said, "Again, this time with these." He tossed her a weighted vest and wristbands. Leary's eyebrows lifted slightly, but she put them on without complaint. The difference was immediate. Her graceful steps became heavier, her breathing quicker. By the fifth run, she was clearly working harder. "Why wait?" she asked between breaths. "Because in the field," Markle said, "you'll never be moving empty. You'll have armor, supplies, sometimes wounded allies. You have to be ready for that." Leary nodded slowly. "I see. Next." Markle led her to a section of the field where metal crates were scattered in random order. "Navigation," he explained. "Sometimes you have no clear path. You find one." The task was to reach the far beacon without touching the ground between obstacles. Leary hesitated only a moment before leaping onto the first crate. Her balance was perfect, but halfway through, she slowed. The crates were farther apart, and some were unstable. She looked back at Markle, who stood with arms crossed. "In a real situation," he called, "looking back can cost you your life. Trust your choice and keep moving." She took a breath, then jumped. The crate wobbled, but she steadied herself and made it to the beacon. When she returned, Markle said, "Good balance, but next time, move faster. Hesitation is danger." By midday, they sat under the shade of a storage canopy. Leary drank water slowly, her breathing still heavy from the drills. "Is this," she asked, "what you meant by the human way?" "This is just the first step," Markle replied. "Humans are used to adapting quickly. We train for the worst possible moment, because it often comes without warning." She tilted her head slightly. "My people prepare too, but differently. We plan, we measure risk. We avoid direct danger when possible." "That works," Markle said, "until you can't avoid it. Then you need a different set of skills." Leary thought about that for a moment, then asked, "What is next?" The next test was mental. Markle placed a holo map between them, projecting a rough layout of an asteroid mining station. "This station has been attacked. You are in charge of leading civilians to safety. There are two routes, one short but blocked by debris, the other longer but clear. Which do you take?" "The longer route," Leary said at once. "Why?" "It is safer." Markle tapped the map. "It's safer now, but what if the attackers cut off that route in 20 minutes? Then the civilians are trapped." She frowned. "So the short route is better?" "Not always," Markle said. "The human way is not about choosing one path for every situation. It's about adjusting as the situation changes." Leary studied the map again. "Then, I would send a small team ahead to clear the debris while moving the rest toward the long route. If the short route opens, we change direction." Markle gave a small nod. "Better. Always keep options alive." In the afternoon, they moved to the edge of the gardens for a quiet walk. Markle wanted to test her observation skills. As they walked, he asked questions casually. "How many people did we pass just now?" "4." She answered without hesitation. "What color was the fourth one's tunic?" She paused. "Green." "No, gray." Markle gave a small smile. "Your mind is sharp, but you must train it to notice details without thinking. On missions, The smallest detail can warn you of danger. She gave a thoughtful nod. I will practice later. As they returned to the training field, a shadow moved near the perimeter fence. It was just a maintenance drone, but Markle saw how Leary tensed slightly, her eyes following it until it vanished. You noticed that, he said. Yes, she replied. It was not here earlier. Markle's respect for her grew a little. She was learning faster than he expected. That evening, they sat at a small table near the living quarters. Talia joined them, her expression curious. How was the first day? She asked. Leary answered before Markle could. Harder than I thought, but interesting. Talia smiled faintly. Good. You will need both effort and interest if you are to keep going. Markle leaned back. She did well for a first day, but this will get harder. She'll have to push past comfort. I am ready, Leary said firmly. Talia's eyes held quiet pride. Then I will leave you to it, but be careful. Not everyone will understand why you are doing this. Markle met her gaze. I know, and I think we already have eyes on us. Indeed, at that very moment, in a shadowed corridor overlooking the field, a tall Varillian in formal robes stood silently. His silver eyes watched the three of them. He was a council observer, sent to report any unusual behavior among the royal family. As Leary's laughter reached his ears, his expression tightened. Training with a human, he thought, this will not be ignored. The training ground was colder today. The station's temperature cycle had shifted, and a thin layer of mist hung over the open space. Markle liked it this way. The cold made people move differently, made them think about how to keep their body ready. Leary arrived early, wearing heavier clothes and carrying her pack. She looked alert, but her face showed none of the strain from the day before. You've recovered well, Markle said as she approached. I was tired, Leary admitted, but I rested and stretched as you advised. Markle gave a small nod. Good. Today will be harder. The first exercise was endurance. Markle led her through a circuit, running, climbing, carrying weighted crates, and crawling under low bars. Leary started strong, but by the third round her breathing was fast and her arms were shaking. Keep moving, Markle said as she reached the climbing wall. Your body will want to stop. Ignore it. She gritted her teeth and pulled herself up. When she reached the top, she paused to catch her breath. Markle called from below. No pausing in the field. Down the other side. Go. She obeyed, sliding down the rope and moving to the next obstacle. By the time she finished the circuit, her hair was damp with sweat and her steps were slower. You did better than yesterday, Markle said, but you need to work on speed while tired. After a short rest, Markle brought out the training staves, light, balanced poles used for practice combat. Leary's eyes lit up slightly. We have something like this in our martial dances, she said. Dances won't help you if someone's trying to knock you down, Markle replied, tossing her a staff. Today you learn human-style close combat. At first, she tried using her usual flowing movements, spinning the staff in her hands. It was elegant, but Markle easily stepped inside her reach and tapped her shoulder with his own weapon. Too much space, he said. In a fight, every extra movement wastes time. Keep it tight, direct. He showed her a simple sequence: block, step, strike. Leary copied him, slowly at first, then faster. By the fifth round, she was hitting the target post with solid precision. But when he suddenly attacked without warning, she froze. The staff slipped slightly in her grip, and he tapped her side. What happened? Markle asked. You moved before I expected, she admitted. That's the point. An enemy won't wait for you to be ready. They repeated the drill, this time with him changing speed and direction randomly. Slowly, Leary began to react faster, adjusting her stance without thinking. By the end, her arms were tired, but her eyes were sharper. Around midday, they took shelter from the chill under a covered bench near the gardens. Markle poured them both water from a metal flask. You learn quickly, he said. My people value fast learning, she replied. We memorize lessons. We repeat until they are perfect. That's good, Markle said, but humans learn differently. We train to act when the situation is far from perfect. Leary tilted her head. You mean when everything is going wrong? Exactly. That's when experience matters most. In the afternoon, Markle tested her awareness again. They walked through the outer ring of the station, where traders, workers, and soldiers moved between docking bays. Tell me what you see, he said quietly. Leary glanced around. 3 human workers carrying crates, a Varillian merchant arguing with a customer, 2 children playing near the railing. The security cameras here are older than the ones in the inner ring. Markle was impressed, noticing equipment quality. That's good. Anything else? She hesitated, then lowered her voice. The man near the cargo lift is watching us, not the ships. Markle looked without turning his head. Sure enough, a figure in formal robes stood there, eyes following them. That's a council observer. Markle said, he's been around since yesterday. Then he knows what we're doing, Leary murmured. Probably, Markle replied. But it doesn't change the training. If you want to be ready for the Joint Defense Council, you'll have to work under pressure, even political pressure. Leary's jaw tightened. Then let him watch. I'll give him something worth reporting. Back at the training field, Markle decided to end the day with a challenge. You have 5 minutes to cross from here to the far beacon, he said. But there will be moving obstacles. He activated a set of small training drones. They floated between the start and finish, moving at different speeds and angles. Some carried soft stun beams that would mark her with a harmless glow if she was hit. This is about movement and awareness, Markle said. If a drone marks you, you start over. Leary nodded, then sprinted forward. She ducked behind a crate, rolled to avoid one drone, then leaped over another's path. Halfway through, one of the faster drones cut across unexpectedly. She twisted sideways, barely avoiding its beam dot by the time she reached the beacon. Her breathing was fast, but her face held a small smile. I made it. Good, Markle said. Now again, and faster. When training ended, the sky over the dome had shifted to deep blue. Stars beginning to appear. Leary slung her pack over her shoulder, her movement slower but steady. You pushed me harder today, she said. You handled it, Markle replied. Tomorrow will be harder still. I look forward to it, she said, and he believed her. But in another part of the station, the council observer sent his report. The younger princess continues to receive direct combat training from the human soldier. She is adapting quickly. The influence is already visible. His message ended with a single warning. If this continues, the line between our people will blur in ways the elders will not accept. That night, as Markle returned to his quarters, Talia was waiting for him. She studied his face for a moment before speaking. She's improving, Markle said before she could ask. I can see it in her posture, Talia replied. But I can also feel the council's eyes. They will act sooner than we hope. Markle exhaled slowly. Then we'll just have to make sure she's ready before they do. The training field was busier than usual. Human recruits in light armor were warming up for their afternoon drills, talking and laughing as they checked their gear. Markle stood at the edge, watching. He wasn't here to train the recruits. At least, not officially. Beside him, Leary's eyes followed every movement on the field. They move differently than us, she said quietly. They're soldiers, Markle replied. And more important, they've learned to fight as a group, not just as individuals. She turned to him. I want to join them. Markle raised an eyebrow. This isn't the same as the training I've been giving you. These drills are fast and competitive. You'll be pushed hard. That's why I want it, Leary said firmly. If I'm to be ready for the Joint Defense Council, I must be tested against more than just you. Markle hesitated. You know the council's rules. Varillians, especially royal family, aren't supposed to compete directly with human soldiers in martial skill. I know, she said, but I'm asking you anyway. He studied her face. There was no trace of hesitation. She had already made up her mind. Markle let out a slow breath. Fine, but we keep it quiet. You blend in with the recruits, follow my instructions, and don't let your pride get in the way. Her eyes lit up. Agreed. The drill began with a basic movement test. The recruits had to navigate a field of obstacles while carrying a heavy pack. Reaching the end in under 3 minutes, Leary stepped into the line with the humans. Drawing a few curious glances, she kept her expression neutral. When the signal sounded, they all surged forward. The recruits were fast, but Leary's Varillian agility gave her an edge. She moved smoothly over crates, balanced across narrow beams, and slid under low bars without losing speed. She finished in the middle of the group. Not the fastest, but far from the slowest. One recruit gave her a nod of respect. Not bad. For someone new. The second challenge was team-based, a mock skirmish between two squads using stun rifles. The goal was to capture the opposing team's beacon. Markle assigned Leary to his squad. Stay low, move when I tell you, and remember, this is about working as a unit. The match started. Their squad moved through the maze of barriers, exchanging stun fire with the other team. Leary followed Markle's lead at first, covering him as he advanced. Then, spotting an opening, she darted forward without waiting for an order. She weaved between cover, stunned an opponent, and grabbed the beacon before the other team could react. The recruits on her side cheered. But Markle's face stayed serious. Good move, but you took a risk. If you'd been hit, we'd have lost our chance. Leary gave a small smile. But I wasn't hit. He shook his head. But there was a trace of pride in his eyes. The final drill was the toughest. A full-speed capture the flag match across the entire field, with both teams allowed to use any tactics. This time, Leary hung back, moving carefully. She stayed in cover, coordinated with the others, and followed Markle's signals. When the opposing team pushed hard on the left flank, she flanked them from the right, stunning two and forcing the rest to retreat. Their squad won the match. The recruits clapped her on the shoulder as they left the field. You fight like one of us, one said. Markle was about to tell Leary she had done well when the field alarm sounded. It wasn't the drill bell. It was the sharp, urgent tone of a real emergency. A voice came over the loudspeaker. Distress call received from supply ship Horizon Dawn. Coordinates transmitting to all available units. Hostile contact confirmed. Markle's expression hardened. That's not part of the exercise. He turned to Leary. This is real. You stay here. She shook her head. I'm coming with you. No, Markle said firmly. This isn't training anymore. I've trained for this, she argued. And you said the worst moments come without warning. This is that moment. He hesitated only a second before nodding. Fine. Stay close to me. Follow orders exactly. And don't take unnecessary risks. Minutes later, they were aboard a small patrol craft with 4 human recruits. The ship lifted off, engines roaring, and headed toward the Horizon Dawn's coordinates. Through the viewport, the distant glint of the supply ship grew larger, and alongside it, the jagged shape of a pirate skiff, its weapons firing in bursts of bright energy, shields holding at 40%, the pilot called. Markle strapped in and checked his rifle. We board from the starboard side, Leary. You stay behind me until I clear the area. When they docked, the airlock hissed open. Smoke filled the quarter beyond, and the sound of blaster fire echoed. Markle moved quickly, signaling the recruits to cover different angles. Leary stayed at his back, her eyes scanning every corner. They pushed forward, stunning to pirates who tried to block their way. In the cargo hold, they found a small group of crew members trapped behind overturned crates. Go, Markle shouted, covering them as they ran toward the exit. A pirate aimed at one of the fleeing crew, and in that instant, Leary moved without thinking. She leaped forward, knocking the pirate's weapon aside, then swept his legs with a sharp kick. The man hit the ground hard, and a recruit secured him. Markle glanced at her, a mix of surprise and approval in his eyes. Nice move. Now keep moving. They cleared the ship in less than 10 minutes. The pirates retreated to their skiff, which broke away and jumped to faster-than-light speed. Back aboard the patrol craft, the recruits were grinning. You see that, one said. She took that guy down like nothing. Leary only smiled faintly, but her eyes were bright. Markle leaned closer to her. You did well, but this will make waves. The council will hear about it. I'm ready for that, she said quietly. And indeed, hours later, in the grand chamber of the Varillian Council, voices rose sharply. she engaged in combat alongside human soldiers, one elder said in disbelief, and not just training, a real battle. Another added, "This is a violation of every rule we have kept for generations." Only one voice was calmer. "Perhaps," the elder said slowly, "it is time to reconsider those rules." The debate had begun, and it would not end quietly. The council chamber was tense, the high ceiling echoed every word, and the light from the crystal panels above cast sharp shadows across the long table. Where the Varillian elders sat, Markle stood near the center, his hands behind his back, while Leary remained at his side. Her posture was upright, her expression calm, but her pulse was fast. The elder at the far end, Counselor Darn, spoke first. "You understand, Princess, that your actions on the Horizon Dawn have created a political storm. You placed yourself in danger, broke a centuries-old regulation, and acted without clearance." Leary answered without hesitation. "I acted to save lives, humans and Virillians alike. Would you have me stand aside?" A murmur ran through the chamber. Some nodded quietly. Others looked scandalized. Counselor Revan, a stern figure with sharp features, leaned forward. "Your courage is not in question, but your judgment is. You were not trained for human tactics. If you had fallen, it would have been more than your life lost. It would have been an insult to the honor of our people." Markle stepped forward slightly. "With respect, Counselor, she was trained by me." She moved with skill, followed orders, and her actions prevented casualties. If she hadn't acted, one of the crew would be dead. Revan's eyes narrowed. "And you believe this justifies breaking protocol, yes?" Markle replied simply. Counselor Yadra, the youngest of the group, spoke up. "We cannot ignore the fact that our alliance with the humans is still fragile. Acts like these, shared battlefields, joint training, could strengthen that bond or weaken it." Darn countered, "If humans begin expecting royal members to fight at their side, what happens when one falls in battle? Will they take responsibility for that loss?" Leary met his gaze. "I choose my own path. The humans did not force me to fight. I did so willingly." Her words carried a steady strength, and for a moment the chamber fell silent. Finally, the council chairwoman, Elder Theria, raised her hand. Her voice was calm but carried authority. "We are at a crossroads. This is no longer about a single mission. It is about what kind of future we want with the humans." She looked at Leary and then at Markle. "You two will remain under observation. No further joint combat assignments will be given until we decide on a new policy. In the meantime, you are to continue training, but within Varillian territory only." Leary's jaw tightened, but she bowed her head slightly. "Understood." Outside the chamber, the air was cooler, but the tension followed them. "That could have gone worse," Markle said quietly. "It could have gone better," Leary replied. "They speak as if courage is dangerous." Markle gave her a sideways glance. "Sometimes, to them, it is." They walked in silence for a few steps before he added, "They're afraid of change. And you are change, walking, talking, defying rules they've held for generations." Leary's lips curved slightly. "Then I'll keep walking." Over. The next week, their training sessions took place inside a secured Varillian arena. The walls were high, the air was still, and no human recruits were allowed. But Leary pushed herself harder than ever. She practiced until her movements were sharper, her aim faster. Markle adjusted each drill, forcing her to think on her feet. One day, after a particularly intense sparring match, Markle dropped his practice blade and said, "You've reached the point where you can match me move for move. That means you're ready for the next step." Leary tilted her head. "And what is that? Thinking beyond the fight, strategy." He set up a simulation map on the console, a digital projection of a space station under siege. "You're in command," he said. "You have 4 squads, limited supplies, and the enemy has already breached one section. What do you do?" Leary studied the map, moving her fingers over the projected terrain. She assigned 2 squads to defend the central hub, sent one to flank the attackers, and kept one in reserve. Markle watched her decisions unfold. "Good. But you left the lower docking bay undefended. That's where I would have entered if I We're your enemy. She adjusted her plan immediately. Then I'd set a trap there. His expression showed approval. Now you're thinking like a commander. But just as she was settling into this new rhythm, trouble found them again. Late one evening, Markle was reviewing combat reports when a secure transmission came through. The holographic display flickered, showing a human officer's face, Markle. The officer said, voice urgent, "We've intercepted a Varillian distress signal. One of your transport ships is under attack near the neutral zone. No other Varillian patrols are close enough to reach them in time." Markle's gut tightened. Coordinates, the officer sent them. Markle looked at the distance. It was within reach if they left immediately, but the problem was obvious. If we go, we'll be crossing into restricted territory. The officer hesitated. If you don't go, they won't make it. Leary had been standing at the doorway, listening. We're going, she said firmly. Markle frowned. You heard. The council. No joint missions. This isn't a mission, she replied. It's a rescue. Her words left no room for argument. Within minutes, they were aboard a small interceptor. The engines roared, pulling them into the black of space. The coordinates took them to a scattered debris field, the remains of civilian cargo drones, their frames still sparking. In the distance, the Varillian transport ship drifted, shields flickering under repeated strikes from 3 small pirate vessels. Markle's hands tightened on the controls. 3 ships, fast ones. We'll have to hit hard and fast, Leary checked. Her rifle. Tell me where you need me. They swooped in from behind the nearest pirate craft, weapons blazing. The enemy ship jerked as its shields failed, and it spun off into the debris. The others had turned toward them, firing wildly. Markle rolled the interceptor to avoid the blasts, then lined up for another shot. Leary, boarding action. Now, she didn't hesitate. They latched onto the second pirate ship, forcing an airlock connection. The hatch opened with a hiss, and they surged in together. Blaster fire filled the narrow corridor. Leary moved with swift precision, taking cover and returning. Fire! Within minutes, the pirates were subdued, their ship drifting powerless. Markle glanced at her as they secured the last of them. You just broke another council order. Her eyes met his steadily. Then I suppose they'll have to write new ones. They freed the Varillian transport and escorted it back toward friendly space. But Markle knew this was only the beginning. When the council heard of this, the debate would turn into a battle of its own, and this time, the stakes would be higher than either of them imagined. The council chamber buzzed with tension. Reports of Leary and Markle's latest rescue had spread faster than anyone had expected. Some elders were furious, others uneasy, and a few began to whisper that this young princess might be the key to a new alliance with the humans. Markle and Leary stood at the center of the chamber, facing dozens of silver-eyed council members. Their expressions were unreadable, but the sharpness in their gaze spoke volumes. Councillor Darn's voice cut the quiet. Princess Leary, once again you have acted without authorization. You risked the lives of Varillians, you compromised protocol, and you endanger political stability. Explain yourself. Leary's stance was firm. Counselor, I acted to save lives, civilians and crew members alike. I did not act out of pride or defiance. I acted because it was necessary. A low murmur rose from the other elders. Some nodded, some shook their heads. Counselor Revan leaned forward. Necessary or not, you have now involved a human in our internal matters. Do you realize the implications? This could be seen as favoritism, worse, as interference. Markle stepped slightly forward. With respect, Counselor, the human involvement was minimal. I only assisted in training her. The decisions, every step, were hers. She acted with intelligence, foresight, and courage. A few elders whispered among themselves. Counselor Yadra spoke up. Perhaps this courage is exactly what we need. We've maintained strict separation from the humans for centuries, but it has left us vulnerable in unforeseen situations. Maybe the princess's actions show a path forward. Darn's eyes narrowed. Vulnerability is not a reason to break law. The line between bravery and recklessness is clear. Today it is your sister. Tomorrow it could be our entire fleet. Leary held her ground. And if we continue following Only tradition. Tomorrow it may be too late to act. If I can help my people survive, I must. The chamber fell silent for a long moment. Elder Theria, the chairwoman, finally spoke. Her voice was steady. We cannot ignore the results of these actions. The transport was saved. Civilians were unharmed. And our human allies proven he can guide without overstepping. Yet, rules exist for a reason. We must consider a solution that respects both tradition and survival. Markle nodded slightly. Then let's find it. The people we protect cannot wait for endless debate. Theria's eyes flicked to Lyri. Princess, for now, you and the human will continue training. But all missions must receive preliminary approval from this council. No further unauthorized actions. Lyri bowed slightly. Understood. After the chamber session, Markle and Lyri walked through the station gardens. The air smelled faintly of silverleaf blossoms, but the tension lingered. They'll be watching us even more closely now. Markle said. I expected that, Lyri replied. And I'm ready. Markle gave a wry smile. You say that, but this isn't just training anymore. Every move you make will be observed, recorded, and judged. One mistake, and it won't just be you who faces the consequences. I know, she said. But if we don't act, more lives could be lost. I cannot stand by. He shook his head, impressed despite the growing pressure. You're fearless. I'm careful, she said. Fearless doesn't mean reckless. A few days later, news arrived of another human convoy under threat near a disputed asteroid belt. The council debated long and heatedly. Some elders insisted no Virilians or human trainers could intervene. Others argued that saving lives should override politics. Finally, Chairwoman Theria made a decision. Markle and Lyri will lead a small, authorized rescue team. This will be the first joint operation officially sanctioned by the council. But understand, any failure could be catastrophic, politically and strategically. Lyri's eyes glimmered with determination. We will not fail. Markle gave a small nod. We'll make sure of it. The rescue operation was a test of both skill and coordination. Markle and Lyri worked with a mix of human pilots and Virilian engineers, mapping a path through asteroid clusters and avoiding hostile patrols. You see that gap between the two rocks? Markle asked, pointing to a holo projection. We thread through here at full speed. Any hesitation, and the convoy could be lost. I see it, Lyri replied. I can guide the squad through if you take the lead on the escort craft, Markle nodded. Deal. The convoy came into view. The asteroid belt shimmered with dust and reflected starlight. A few hostile vessels appeared. Weapons trained on the transports. Ready? Markle asked. Yes, Lyri said with precise timing. Markle's squad moved in. Human ships provided cover fire while Lyri coordinated navigation for the convoy. She issued rapid commands, adjusting routes as debris shifted and enemy fire targeted them. Markle covered the rear, stunning a small pirate craft with a well-aimed shot. Lyri's commands kept the convoy moving steadily through the belt. After tense minutes that felt like hours, the last transport cleared the asteroids and entered safe space. The crew cheered over comm channels. Markle looked at Lyri. You handled that perfectly. Every decision was quick, precise, and correct. Lyri allowed herself a small smile. And you were there to make sure we stayed alive. Back at the station, the council convened again. This time, the mood was different. Some elders who had opposed Lyri's earlier actions now nodded in approval. As reports detailed the successful rescue, Theria addressed the chamber. It seems that courage, skill, and cooperation can achieve what rigid rules cannot. Perhaps our alliance with the humans can be strengthened, not feared. And Princess Lyri has demonstrated exceptional leadership under pressure. Revan still frowned, but his voice lacked the previous harshness. Perhaps we will observe more before judgment. Darn remained skeptical but silent. Even he could not deny the results. Markle and Lyri exchanged a quiet glance. For the first time, it felt like their efforts were recognized, not just tolerated. That evening, Talia met them in the private quarters. I heard about today, she said softly. It seems the council is beginning to understand. Leary leaned back against the wall, exhausted but satisfied. Understanding is slow, but at least it's moving in the right direction. Markle put a hand on her shoulder. We've come a long way, and there will be more challenges. But today was proof you can handle them. Talia smiled faintly, and you did well too, guiding her without overstepping, keeping her alive, and protecting our people. Markle shrugged modestly. Just doing my part. She's the one leading the way. But outside the station, in the shadow of nearby planets, a distant fleet of unknown ships moved quietly. They had been observing, testing both human and Virilian readiness. And now, with the combined skills of Leary and Markle visible, they began plotting their next move. The real threat was yet to arrive, and the lessons Leary had learned and the trust she and Markle had built would soon be tested beyond anything the Council had ever imagined. The black space stretched in every direction, silent and endless. Only the hum of the small transport ship broke the stillness. Tom, a young human pilot, sat in the cockpit, guiding his vessel through the outer edge of Zerna's space. He had just finished a delivery to a mining colony and was heading back toward human territory. This part of space was quiet, far from trade lanes, the perfect place to be alone with his thoughts. Tom liked it that way. No noise, no orders, no politics. Just him, the ship, and the stars. But quiet never lasted long. The soft beep of the scanner suddenly caught his attention. A faint signal flashed on the console, a distress call. Tom frowned. That's odd, he muttered. The signal was weak, almost lost in static. It came from a few thousand kilometers ahead. Drifting far from any known station, he hesitated. Out here, a distress signal could mean trouble. Pirates use them as traps. But something in the back of his mind told him to check it out. Adjusting the controls, he steered toward the signal. The stars shifted on the screen as his ship glided through the void. Minutes later, the object appeared, a small escape pod, old and covered in scorch marks. It spun slowly, one side dented, the glass viewport cracked. Tom's heart tightened. Escape pods meant survivors, sometimes. He activated the ship's grappler and pulled the pod into his docking bay. Once the pressure matched, he climbed down from the cockpit and approached. The hatch groaned as it opened. Inside, he found a single occupant, a small figure curled in the seat, wrapped in a faded blanket. It was a girl. She looked young, maybe in her teens, with pale violet skin and silver markings along her temples. Her long hair, tangled and dusty, shimmered faintly under the lights. She held something tightly in her hand, a pendant, shaped like a tiny crystal star. Tom knelt down and checked her breathing. It was weak, but steady. She was alive. Hey, you're safe now, he said softly. Knowing she couldn't understand him, the girl's eyes fluttered open. They were a deep shade of blue, brighter than any human's. She stared at him in confusion. Then fear. Her grip on the pendant tightened. It's okay, Tom said, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. She spoke something in a language he didn't know, soft, broken words that sounded almost like a song. Tom shook his head gently. I don't understand, but I'll help you. He unstrapped her from the seat and carried her carefully to the ship's small medbay. The scanner showed signs of long-term cryosleep, dehydration, and minor injuries. She must have been drifting for a long time. While the auto-med worked, Tom sat nearby, thinking. Who was she? Why was she out here alone? His eyes drifted to the pendant in her hand. The design looked familiar, but he couldn't place it. Then he remembered he had seen something like it in old holo recordings. It was the royal emblem of House Zerna, one of the most powerful alien kingdoms in this part of the galaxy. Tom leaned back in his chair, staring at the girl. If she really came from Zerna's royal family, then she was in danger. The Queen of Zerna was known to have lost a daughter years ago. But could this be her? Before he could think further, the ship's warning alarm blared. Tom rushed to the cockpit. On the radar, to fast-moving ships appeared pirate raiders. Of course. Tom muttered. Raiders love to hunt small ships, especially ones carrying survivors or valuable cargo. He quickly strapped in and powered the engines. Hang on, kid, he said over his shoulder. though he knew she couldn't understand. The raiders opened fire. Bright bursts of plasma streaked past his ship. Tom pulled the controls hard, dodging between their shots. His small transport wasn't built for combat, but it was faster than most pirate craft. The girl appeared in the doorway, holding onto the frame to keep from falling. She watched him with wide eyes as the ship shook. Tom spoke quickly. "They're after you, aren't they?" Her silence was answer enough. He dove toward a dense asteroid field ahead. The pirates followed, but the sharp turns and narrow gaps slowed them down. Tom weaved between massive spinning rocks, scraping past one so close it almost tore the wing off. A sudden burst of speed took them out of the field. The pirates hesitated, then vanished from the radar. Tom let out a long breath. That was close. He turned in his seat. The girl was still there, holding the pendant like it was the most important thing in the universe. She said something again in her language, her voice trembling, but grateful. Tom nodded. Even if he didn't understand, "You're safe now, I promise." But deep inside, he knew this wasn't over. Someone had left her drifting for years, and now others wanted her dead. And if she really was who he thought, then bringing her home could change everything. The warning sirens blared across the station, red lights flashed, and the low hum of defensive systems filled every corridor. Leary and Markle were already at the command center, their eyes on the holographic display. A fleet of unknown ships had appeared near the edge of the system, fast, agile, and armed with weapons capable of penetrating shields. Their trajectory suggested an attack on the Verilian transports and human convoys. "This is no drill," Markle said quietly. "We're the first line of defense." Leary's grip tightened on her tactical console. "Then we fight, as we've trained, together." Markle nodded. "Exactly." The Council had authorized a joint task force, Verilian and human crews working side by side. For once, the old rules were set aside in favor of survival. "Deploy all defensive drones to the perimeter," Markle commanded. "Leary, you take navigation control for the convoy. I'll cover escort maneuvers." "Yes, sir," Leary replied. She adjusted the fleet's route, weaving transports through asteroid clusters to create natural cover. She calculated timing, predicting enemy movements while ensuring no ship slowed too much. "Enemy vessels are fast," a human pilot reported. "They'll cut off the convoy in 3 minutes. Then we move faster," Leary said calmly. "Trust the ships and follow my path." The first wave of attackers struck. Blaster fire illuminated the darkness of space, arcs of energy bouncing off shields. Leary's voice guided the convoy like a conductor's baton. "Left 3 degrees. Shield boost 50%. Maintain speed." Markle maneuvered the escort ship expertly, taking out the small enemy fighters that attempted to flank the convoy. He glanced at Leary's screen. "Your path is working. They're following you, not us." "Yes," she said. "Keep them occupied while the convoy moves." The tension was palpable. Each second felt stretched, each decision critical. But Leary's calm, precise commands kept the fleet organized, and the attackers struggled to find openings. As the battle progressed, one of the larger enemy vessels charged directly at a transport. Markle signaled to human ships to intercept. "I'll take the starboard flank," he said. "Cover the convoy." Leary's eyes narrowed. "I can handle that. Follow my instructions." "Everyone, focus on timing, not fear." She adjusted shields, rerouted energy, and calculated evasive maneuvers in real time. The convoy twisted and spun through debris, narrowly avoiding energy blasts. Markle's ships engaged the enemy, drawing fire away from the transports. He saw Leary's focus, unwavering, sharp, strategic. "Markle, starboard convoy needs more." "Shield," Leary called. "Boost to 75% now." He tapped the controls and complied. "Done. Keep moving." The enemy shifted strategy. They split into smaller groups, attempting to surround the convoy. Leary's mind worked quickly, anticipating each movement. She sent one transport group to loop through a narrow asteroid gap, using natural cover as a shield. Another group followed a reverse trajectory to lure enemies into a trap. Markle watched, impressed. "Your planning is incredible. I've never seen anyone adapt that fast under pressure. Leary didn't answer. She was focused on saving every ship. One enemy fighter broke through the outer defenses, heading straight for the command ship. Leary spotted it instantly. Markle. Hard left, 3 seconds. He rolled the ship just in time. The enemy craft zooming past harmlessly. Nice catch, he said, a hint of a smile in his voice. Minutes felt like hours. The attackers grew frustrated. Their formations were disorganized, their strategy failing against Leary's command and Markle's skilled maneuvers. The final enemy ship, larger and more powerful than the others, advanced toward the main convoy. Leary analyzed the options, then issued orders with calm authority. All ships converge on the gap at coordinates X37, Y-1. Prepare coordinated strike. Fire when I give the signal. Markle read the plan instantly. Understood. The human and Virelian pilots executed perfectly. Leary's timing was flawless. The enemy vessel was surrounded on all sides, unable to maneuver or escape. Coordinated. Fire hit weak points in its shields, finally disabling its engines. The ship spun harmlessly into the void. Silence followed. Then cheers erupted from the convoy crews. Every transport had survived, every ship intact. Back at the station, the council received the report. This time, even the most conservative elders could not deny what had happened. Theria spoke first. Princess Leary, your actions and your coordination with the human ally have saved countless lives. This is more than courage, it is leadership. Perhaps it is time to rethink the old rules. Revan nodded slowly. It seems there is merit in combining our strengths. Darn, still serious, finally said. While tradition cautions us, success cannot be ignored. The princess and her ally have proven that action, guided by skill and care, can protect our people. Leary and Markle exchanged a glance. For the first time, recognition replaced scrutiny. That evening, in a quiet corner of the station gardens, Leary finally allowed herself to relax. Markle sat beside her, both looking up at the stars. You handled everything beautifully, he said. Not just the battle, but the strategy, the timing, the people. Leary smiled faintly. I only did what I had to. You taught me to think clearly, to trust my instincts, and to act without hesitation. Markle shrugged. I guided you. You executed, and you inspired everyone watching, human and Virelian alike. She leaned back, letting the silver leaf blossoms drift around them. Then perhaps the future will be different. Maybe humans and Virelians can work together. Not just coexist. Markle nodded. And you lead that change. I'll be there. To help, news of their success spread across both human and Virelian communities. Leary's reputation shifted from rebellious princess to brilliant leader, while Markle gained respect as the human who trained and guided her. The council's previous resistance softened. Some rules were reconsidered. Joint training became an approved, if closely monitored, program. Yet, both Leary and Markle knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy held more threats, more challenges, and more decisions that would test skill, courage, and trust. But for the first time, they had proven one undeniable truth. When humans and Virelians acted together, they could overcome almost any danger, and together, they were unstoppable.